Hi, everyone. We'll just get started in a second. Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Katrina Campos Arconi Stubbs, and I'll be our moderator today. Je serai votre modératrice.
I'll be your moderator today.
For joining us for our media availability on O-Train's lines 2 and 4 trial running. Merci de vous joindre à nous pour le point de presse sur la période de rodage pour les lignes 2 et 4.
Thank you very much for joining us for the lines 2 and 4 trial running.
Is either available in French or English. If you'd like audio interpretation, click on the interpretation globe in the bottom menu and then select your preferred language. You can ask your question in the language of your choice. Also, please note this media avail is being recorded. Veuillez noter que ce point de presse est disponible.
Please note that this media availability is available either in French or in English. If you would like audio interpretation, click on the interpretation globe icon at the bottom of your screen and then choose the language of your choice. You can ask your questions in the language of your choice. This meeting will be recorded.
Today's media availability will include opening remarks from René Amilcar, General Manager of Transit Services, and Richard Holder, Director of the Rail Construction Program. Le point de presse d'aujourd'hui comprendra des remarques.
Today's media availability will include opening remarks from René Amilcar, General Manager of the Transit Services, and Richard Holder, Director of the Rail Construction Program.
Before we start, I'd like to explain the details of the daily media availabilities. During the first phase of trial running, we'll hold media availabilities Monday to Friday, typically around 4 p.m. You'll receive the media advisory each day around 2 p.m. with the exact time. The daily performance memo will be shared each day around 3:30 p.m. Please note that a performance memo will be shared on Monday, October 14th, Thanksgiving Day, but there will be no media availability on Thanksgiving Day. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais expliquer les détails les points de presse.
Before beginning, some details on the media availabilities during the first phase of the trial running. We'll hold media availabilities Monday to Friday, typically around 4 p.m. Every day you'll receive a media advisory indicating the exact time. The daily performance memo will be shared each day around 3:30 p.m. Please note the performance memo will be shared on Monday, October 14th, Thanksgiving Day, but there will be no availability on the Thanksgiving Monday.
À vous la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Katrina. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first virtual media availability for trial running. Today, we will discuss the trial running results from October 7th. I'm pleased to be here today alongside Richard Holder, Director of the Rail Construction Program, to share our day one results and answer your questions about this important phase of the project. Before I hand things over to Richard, I want to reemphasize that there is a clear and structured process in place to evaluate the results of our trial running. This process is informed by lessons learned from line 1 and recommendations from the public inquiry, ensuring that we approach this with the highest possible standards. We have worked to ensure that every single best practice has been put in place. Throughout this phase, we will be sharing daily results with both Council, the public, and you, our media partners, as part of our efforts to communicate openly and transparently. I would like to thank the entire team at TransitNext and everyone at OC TRANSPO for their hard work and collaboration that has brought us to these major milestones. Maintenant, je vais passer la parole à Richard. Richard, s'il vous plaît.
Richard, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Renee, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today to share the results from the first day of trial running for the O-Train South Extension lines 2 and 4. This marks an important milestone after years of hard work and attention to detail throughout the planning, construction, and testing and commissioning phases of this project. I want to take this opportunity to thank residents and customers for their patience throughout this process. I know that from noisy and dusty construction to traffic delays and detours, your daily commutes have been disrupted. This milestone means we are one step closer to the finish line. We have now started the first phase of trial running, which will go for a minimum of 14 days. During this time, the system must achieve a minimum Transit Next on-time performance of 98.5% over a 14-day rolling average. For yesterday's operations, the Transit Next on-time performance was 98.3%. This is a very strong start, and we are working with Transit Next to see where improvements can be made during these early days. Yesterday, we had an issue that impacted Transit Next's ability to launch one train in the morning, and this caused a minor delay during the start of service. The other issue we saw yesterday that caused a minor delay was related to CCTV cameras on two trains that were not working as intended. These CCTV cameras are used by the operators of the train to watch out for customers as they are entering and exiting a train. As this is the first day of trial running, there are still sufficient days left to increase the 14-day rolling average to 98.5%. And so we have a minimum of 13 days now remaining for this phase of trial running to conclude. As a brief reminder, on-time performance is measured by assessing on-time departures at terminus stations for both lines 2 and 4, while respecting the dwell times and trains departing within 30 seconds of their scheduled time. For line 2, this means on-time departures from Bayview and Linebank stations. And for line 4, this means on-time departures from South Keys and airport stations. Before I conclude my remarks, I just want to say thank you to my team for their hard work and Transit Next for their collaboration throughout this process. I will now hand it back to Katrina for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Merci, René. I'll now ask each agency in alphabetical order to ask questions. Je vais maintenant inviter chaque organisme de
Every
presse.
agency will now be able to ask questions in the alphabetic order.
Nous allons commencer par Arthur White-Crummy at CBC Ottawa.
Hi, thanks so much for taking my question. I was just hoping that you could expand on the issue that you perceived with the train vehicles and precisely why it led to the delay with starting the train.
Richard, do you want to take it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes. So in terms of the delay in the morning, I believe we had an issue with a brake. So it took some time for a technician to provide a release for that brake before it could be launched. And then the other issue that I had discussed around the CCTV camera, within the cab, the images from the cameras on the side of the vehicles were not showing up within the cab. And so a technician needed to be called to undertake like an on-site fix for those cameras.
Just a follow-up, do you expect that is a one-time issue that is now, entirely resolved, or are these things that could continue to cause delays in the future?
The issue that occurred was certainly not something that we were expecting. It only occurred on 2 trains, not on the whole fleet. In terms of the root cause of that issue, we still need to work with the Transit Next team and the vehicle supplier, Stadler, to determine exactly what went wrong so that we can make an update. But my understanding is that the initial response has been to replace some hardware cards on those 2 trains, and that's expected to resolve the issue. But we will monitor over the next few days.
And just a quick thing, the 2 trains, that's for the brakes, not for the CCTV, or is it for both?
No, the two trains were had issues at the terminus stations with the CCTV cameras. The issue first thing in the morning was related to a train being launched to the MSF.
Right. So the one in the morning, the one train, that was a brake issue, and the 2 trains is the CCTV.
Correct.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Arthur. We'll now move on to William Etherington at CTV.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So the issues on the trains, which lines were those, on the line 2 or the line 4?
Richard, go ahead, please.
I believe all the issues were related to the Stadler trains that were being launched to line 2.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And then one thing, so it was 98.5, I think, is the 40-day rolling average, and it was 98.3, which is still very good. But wondering if there's, if just was curious, like, is there a contingency plan in place if there was like a rolling average 14-day rolling average just under the 98.5? Is there like a window in which it could potentially still move on to the next phase?
I will take that one, if you don't mind, Richard. So I was clear during the briefing technique that we need 98.5. It's a rolling average. So after the 14 days, the average will need to be 98.5.
Gotcha. Thanks very much.
Thank you. La prochaine, Charles-Antoine Gagnon, Le Droit.
Charles-Antoine Gagnon. Go ahead.
How many trains do you have rolling right now on each line for this trial?
So the maximum of trains that we will run during the revenue service will be 9, two for the airport, and 7 for line 2 from Line Bank to Bayview. So this is what we have on track actually with the trial running.
Okay. Ça va dans les deux directions, c'est ça?
So
that'll be in both directions? Yes, there are 9 altogether. 2 will be South Keys to the airport, and then there will be 7 Line Bank to Bayview. So both lines are working together for a total of 9. And that'll be the case for the entirety of the trial. And I imagine that you are working as if there are passengers on board, that the train will stop to allow enough time for people to get off. Is that what you're doing? Yes, exactly. It is a simulation as if there were people aboard. So we are stopping at the station, the doors are opening, and then we wait a certain amount of time. Because as you know, the time at Wimbro and Carleton may be different, because at Carleton, we expect to have many more people. Many more people will come on board. So we have allowed this or put this in our calculations to include the enough people to come in and out. So how much time from Line Bank to Bayview does it take? Well, that's a good question. I might have to come back to you on that, but I think it's about 20 minutes. But I will have to double check and come back to you on that. Thank you very much.
Next is Blair Crawford at the Ottawa Citizen.
Yes, hello. It's a question for Richard, I imagine. If there's a problem you identify that doesn't actually delay a train from traveling, and maybe the CCTV cameras are one of those, how is that accounted for? I mean, if it doesn't affect your on-time performance, how do you score it on your testing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that will come up as we monitor the reliability of the system. So throughout the trial running period, we are assessing, we have approximately 18,500 entry lines on an asset management list. And each one of those lines is related to a device on the system. So we will track every device through the trial running period and assess whether it is working or not for each day. And at the end of the trial running period, we'll be able to assess the reliability of the system as a whole, but also the reliability device by device. If we see that we're having particular issues with some devices or some subsystems, then we will work with Transit Next to ensure that whatever issue is there will be fixed prior to substantial completion.
And as a second question, again, I imagine for Richard, is the testing process taking place over the anticipated operating hours, like from whatever it is, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Yes, that's correct. The main objective of the trial running period is to mimic passenger service as much as possible. So we're running the normal. We're running a normal 7-day service, running the regular hours.
And if I might just ask a third question, the 30-second on-time departures, is that just measured at the first and last station? Is that what I understand, or do you measure it at each station along the line as well?
No, it's only measured at the terminus stations at either end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. La prochaine, c'est Maud Ouellette,
Maud
Radio-Canada.
Ouellette from Radio-Canada. Hello, thank you very much. I'd like to know what the assessment grid looks like to assess the performance grade. How many criteria are there? And could you give us some examples of those criteria, please? Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at the technical briefing last week. The calculations are set out. We can send you a copy. But basically, on a daily basis, we have a number of departures that have to be undertaken, and these departures are calculated based on the total number of departures. To give you some clarity, if there are 100 departures in a day, we'll make sure that at each measuring point at Linebank, Bayview, and South Keys, and at the airport, we'll make sure that the specified schedule is respected with a buffer of 30 seconds. Now, if the departure from Bayview was supposed to be at 8 o'clock, at 8 and 30 seconds, the train is considered on time. And if the train leaves at 8 o'clock and 32 seconds, the train is considered to be late. So Transit Next loses points, therefore. I wanted to get your impression of the first trial running day. Are you satisfied? I'm very, very, very happy. 98.3% is a very good grade, especially for the first day. As you know, and we've had trains running for 2 weeks, and Transit Next was able to get a score of 99.5% over 10 days. 98.3% is an excellent grade. I would have liked 100%, as you know, like as if I was at school. Thank you very much.
Merci. And next we have Shane Seguin from Railfans.
Hi, thank you for taking our questions today. Earlier you mentioned that the performance is measured based on the departure from the terminus station. So with that in mind, does that mean if a train falls behind slightly mid-trip, that it could conceivably travel faster up to the track limit to catch back up? In other words, with respect to the on-time performance, would that have any effect on the scoring for that day?
Yeah, that's a good question. So within the limits of the system, then a vehicle can speed up between two stations to try and catch up a bit of time. As you stated, as we've mentioned, the on-time performance is only being measured at the terminus stations. So if we have a slight delay of a train leaving from one of the stations in the midline, that does not affect the overall on-time performance score.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Then my follow-up again about the performance. When we say terminus station, we're talking about the initial departure or the arrival at the far end of the line as well?
So it would be, we look at a round trip, so that would be 2 departures. So the first departure, for instance, from Linebank, traveling towards Bayview, and then the second departure from Bayview back to Linebank.
Okay, so just to clarify that, so if it goes from Bayview to Limebank, then it comes back to Bayview, whether it shows up 6 minutes or 8 minutes before it's scheduled to leave, as long as it leaves the subsequent trip on time, then it's good.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our media availability for today. Ceci conclut le point de presse aujourd'hui. We'll talk again soon.